I was so lost as an evangelical Christian. I never fit into the Christian box, not even early on. I mean, I was always feeling like I didn't fit in. I was an imposter. I mean, this was just true of my entire Christian life. And even though I went off to Bible college, graduated Bible college, and became a pastor and did all that, as you all know, 30 years, you know, Timmy Gibson, former fundamental evangelical, tongue talking, spirit filled, Holy Ghost rolling pastor. And, was Christian for 48 years, evangelical Christian, and deconstructed about 6 years ago. And I now is the only time in my life, meaning not like right this second, beginning about 6 years ago, I felt like I was getting closer and closer to finding myself and crawling out of this box that I got stuffed into that I just never did fit into. Maybe you feel that same way. Cuss and discuss down below, and let us know kind of your story, your journey. And also, I've got a Facebook page if you want to talk to other people that are across the country or around the world who are deconstructing, or agnostic, atheist, whatever, unbelievers. You can find it on Facebook. You can find it on my community link area, but it's just a Facebook page group. It's a group, actually. So you got to ask to join. Only for those that aren't Christian. Clearly, if you're a religious person, it's not for you. So it's the Deconstruction community. I'd love to have you on the page and jump in that community and be a part of it. So anyway, I never fit into the box. Oh, and by the way, this is a bonus video because I've been spending the Sundays through December, 1st, 8th, 15th, and 20, whatever it is. I'm doing the atheist Advent for atheist. And I noticed those aren't as popular as my videos that I do like this. And so I'll try to do a bonus video throughout the week to make sure I'm putting out the content that people are really wanting to hear. Anyway, I never fit into the Christian box. I just never did. I don't. I've said this before in other videos. I think I just don't fit into any box. I'm my own unique person, but I can really relate to many of my homosexual friends and their experience in the church, especially in the evangelical church. Even though I'm heterosexual, I can understand what they went through and how, like, I'm going to tell you one of my friend's stories, and I could relate to it, not from my sexual orientation, but I could relate to it just because of how I felt. One of my good friends, um, it was, he knew he was gay early on, but he was in a Christian home, and so he couldn't be open and honest about it, and so he always felt like an imposter. He was trying to date women, though that wasn't his jam, but he was trying to do it because that's what you do to be a good little Christian, right? Such BS. Anyway, and so my story's a little different. Even though I was heterosexual, I did also struggle with not living my authentic self for a lot of reasons. I mean, sexually, right? You can't have sex till you're married. Well, I wanted to have sex pretty early on. You can't masturbate, right? I mean, like, and be living God's best life, right? I mean, that's just again, maybe you're saying, well, I'm Christian and I know I can masturbate. Okay, good for you. No, I'm not talking about whether you can or can't, like, physically, but in the how I was raised is that to masturbate was a sin, and it was a sin because you had to have lust or bad thoughts in order to masturbate, right? You couldn't do it blindly, even though it would make you go blind, right? I can't see. Where's the camera? Anyway, so you could only do it never. Like, as a Christian, you couldn't masturbate, and not be sinning. If to masturbate was to sin, there was no way you could masturbate without sinning. Okay, so anyway, so for me, much like my friends who were homosexual, who struggled with living their authentic self, again, though my struggle wasn't the sexual piece or my sexual orientation piece, it was just my sexual desires in general. I couldn't live those out. And there were just so many restrictions on everything. In fact, I think that's what's going on. I literally just a few minutes ago saw a video, a news story about some pastor who was caught um, doing inappropriate things with underage women. So, okay, it is prolific. Why? And that's always been on one hand, it's been such a shocking thing for me growing up Christian and living the Christian life and trying to live pure and do all that. And you just, every time you turn around, you hear a news story about another pastor who's had an affair or who's run off with the secretary or is doing inappropriate things, was caught with the prostitute, was blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just on. And let me just tell you, which I'm sure you know this, every one that you're hearing about, there's 1,000 that you're not hearing about, where the church is keeping it covered and the spouse is definitely keeping it covered. They don't want that shame and guilt associated with them. And so often a pastor's wife will cover for and lie for and deceive anyone to cover up and to protect her husband or the pastor. That's a whole nother video at some other point. But, when you see these scandals, again, those are the ones that were caught. Those are the ones that we just found out about, that we're hearing about. Just mark it down. There's thousands of other ones that we just are not privy to, and they've been kept secret. And dude, the Ravi Zachariah guy, the Christian apologist that had a global ministry, he died last year, I think. I know he died, but I think it was last year. I don't know if it was earlier this year. And it wasn't until after his death, and he was in his 70s, that it came to light in his death that he had apartments all around the country, all around the world, where he would meet women for massages and sexual favors. And it's just like, what is happening? But more importantly, like, why? What is that? And that's going to be a separate video, I think, because that's about sexual repression. I think that the sexual repression is what's led to a lot of the scandals in the world. You can't do certain things, and therefore you put a face to the world that I'm not doing any of those things, and then behind the scenes you are doing those things. Okay. Yeah, that's a whole kind of really a whole nother video to talk about all the scandals and why those are happening. But I think it's just the sexual repression, but it does kind of pair with what I'm talking about now. I never fit into the Christian box. Again, I don't fit into any box, but I never fit into that Christian box. Again, specifically because of the group I was a part of. I mean, you can just tell by looking at me what I'm going to say next doesn't work for me. The first Bible college that I went to, you couldn't have long hair. Your hair couldn't touch your ears. It had to be up over your ear, and it couldn't touch your collar. What is that about? Like, what does that have anything at all to do with Christianity? Especially when you consider Jesus looked more like I do now. Jesus had long hair, wore a robe, and had sandals, and was like a hippie, and had a beard, and right? I mean, if Jesus existed, I'm just going based upon what we think we know of Jesus. Jesus couldn't have gotten into the Bible school that I went to. Go figure. Isn't that effed up? Like, isn't that I remember even at the time, that just blew my mind to think that I was going to a Bible college that Jesus himself couldn't have gotten into. The Son, I don't believe this, but the Son of God couldn't get into the Bible college that I went to because of their ridiculous nutball restrictions and rules. That Bible college didn't make it. Its since is shut down, thank goodness. It was Central Bible College and Assembly of God Bible College in Springfield, Missouri. It was so ridiculous. I'm so glad that it shut down, as it should have shut down. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, so I never fit in. I always struggled. My entire Christian life, I struggled because the way I like to dress, guys, it was always preached from the pulpit. Guys can't have earrings. I'm just telling you what they said. This is going to sound, I'm just repeating what I remember hearing. Earrings are for girls. Those are for, if a guy has them, it's sissy. You can't have tattoos. You can't have tattoos. That's a mark. It's like the mark of the beast. You're just getting 666 on your skin. I mean, dude, on and on and on and on. The ridiculousness of how I was raised, just crazy. I mean, just you couldn't listen to secular music. I mean, clearly, I didn't fit into that vibe. I was always quite edgy with everything about me, as you can just tell by looking at me. Everything about me was pushing the envelope. Later in my pastoral ministry, it later ended up helping me because I was kind of an edgy pastor type, kind of the, I'm not saying I'm hip and cool, but for the Christian world, I'm super hip and cool, had tattoos and the longer hair and, all that stuff. Clearly, none of that is cutting edge at all. I mean, like, what I'm saying? Like, my look is not unique in that way anymore. But in the Christian world, man, I was quite unique. And again, it worked kind of in my favor. But then I would say, I would really say, for me personally, my journey, I was lost as a Christian and became saved or found now as an atheist. I lost myself in the evangelical Christian faith. I was unable to live my authentic life. And I was just talking to a couple that I'm going to be officiating their wedding this next year, and I was talking to them today, and some things came out of me as we were talking that I hadn't really ever thought about. But most of my life was spent suspending rational, logical thought. I lived in somewhat of a fantasy because I was denying facts. In fact, just like this fact, 100%, this is a fact, okay? What I'm going to tell you, this isn't just like my opinion or a hypothesis. What I'm going to tell you right now, it's a fact, and anybody that knows facts is going to know this and be like, well, of course, Timmy, it's a fact. Kind of like the earth is a sphere. Okay, that's not my opinion. That's not a theory. That's not it. It's like a freaking fact. Okay, so Adam and Eve were not the first two humans created by God 6,000 years ago. We know that not to be true through DNA and genetic mapping. Like, we don't think that. It's like, well, maybe. No, it's not even a maybe. It's not like maybe Adam and Eve are the first two humans. 100% no. That is absolutely proven to not be true. That is a proven, fictitious, mythical story. Now, that doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. Okay, no, I don't believe in God. but that doesn't believe that God doesn't exist. I'm just saying people that believe that 6,000 years ago Adam and Eve were created, or that the earth is 6,000 years old, we know that's not true, right? Much like you don't go to college campuses where they debate on whether the earth is flat or not. Well, we know it's not flat, right? We don't think, we know it's a sphere. It's the same thing on college campuses. What do they debate? Now, on YouTube, you'll see a whole bunch of different debates. But on college campuses, like of higher learning, educated people, does God exist, or the existence of God? Okay, that is debatable, right? Because we don't know. It's very unlikely, right? That there is zero evidence for a God. But also there are some unknowns where, they call it the God of the gaps, where you can throw God in there and it's possible, right? So, that's why I often say I'm agnostic, atheist as it relates to the Bible God. I'm certain that Bible God doesn't exist, but maybe that, there's something else out there. I don't know, right? Like I say, I've not traveled the universe, so who knows? So on college campuses, there'll be debates on the existence of God. But you don't even see on college campuses debates over Adam and Eve being the first two humans, or the earth is 6,000 years old, a young earth versus an old earth. You see that kind of stuff on YouTube. People that will debate, who is that wingnut that built the ark down in Arkansas or something? I can't even think of that moron's name. But that guy is the biggest moron I've ever known and to ever see on YouTube. It is absolutely insane. Some of the nutball, crackpot, nutty stuff that he says. Is his name Ham? What is that weirdo's name? Cuss and discuss it below. I can't think of his name right now. I just know that I saw a debate between Bill Nye, the science guy, and this nut job. It was just a complete joke. I wish I could think of his name, but it is literally skipped out of my brain, and it's not anywhere in there that I'm going to be able to pull it back down. It's probably better that I don't that I don't know. I guess he's forgettable when it comes to that moronic teaching. Anyway, so yeah, I know. I'm curious if you did, cuss and discuss below. I really had lost myself in the evangelical Christian faith. And then as I walked away and went through the deconstruction process, again, I can only tell you what's true, absolutely a fact, true for me, 100%, okay? I found myself as I walked away from religion. The more I walked away from religion, the more I began to come my true authentic self. And, I did a video, or I'm releasing I have videos scheduled out for several weeks in advance. So sometimes I'll say I have a video coming out, or I'll say I just did a video, and I get it all mixed up because I just did the video, but it's actually scheduled to come out after something else. So I do have a video coming, or it just came out, but it will be out if it's not out yet. Talking about the one thing that I say a lot, which is I'm a better person now as an atheist than I ever was as a Christian. And that's just a true statement. It's a fact. I'm a better person now. And part of it is because it's my authentic, I'm living my authentic self. I'm not hiding. And that's what the Christian, especially the evangelical, the very strict fundamental group, everybody's hiding. And maybe that's not the right word to use. Everybody's not maybe the right word. Most people are hiding. Hello, I pastored for 30 years. I had 300 people in my church. I know people. I still know people, and I knew people. I mean, behind closed doors, they weren't living any more Christian than anyone. I can't tell you the number of people that I knew, I know, and whatever, where when I was a pastor, I would go over to their house and they would hide all the alcohol because, I was raised no drinking. And so in my church, I had a rule. Again, I don't believe any of this BS now. But when I was a pastor, I had a rule for those in leadership. I said, for those in leadership, I don't want anybody drinking. Isn't that just so stupid? So culty. It's so culty. When I think back to it now, I'm like, dadgum, that's so culty, Timmy. Anyway, it is what it is. I loosened up on that actually towards the end before I actually ended up going, this is all BS, I'm out. But I remember one of the teenagers told my daughter, because they were friends, told my daughter, yeah, my parents were like spending all day cleaning up and making sure to hide all the alcohol before your mom and dad came over. I thought that was so funny. But that's just that, again, it's prolific, but because you can't be honest. You have to high and lied. I've heard of couples. I remember hearing about a couple that were in my church who were secretly swingers. They were Christians. They and they had a secret life as swingers. They couldn't live that. Like, they couldn't just be open and honest about it. And I guess even in culture in general, you can have some private things, but they not only was it private just because they wanted to keep it private to not be judged, but they definitely kept it private because, the Christian church doesn't support swinging. Of course, the Bible's crazy and has a bunch of crazy stuff in it, incest, slavery. But anyway, whatever. I think it's just crazy when I think about the people that try to conform and fit into a box like myself, this Christian box. You have to live this way, look this way, act this way, behave this way, do all this stuff this way. And they don't fit. No one can fit, right? There, again, hardly anyone. There's maybe a few out there, Mr. Roger types that were always just whatever, just pure and sweet and never wanted to be ornery ever in their life. Who knows? Okay. But the people that I knew, they had secret stuff going on the side. Okay. They couldn't fit into this box. I knew one guy that actually worked for a mega church, like a mega church, like TV famous mega church. And it's a fundamental evangelical mega church. I won't name it just because I just don't want to, but if I said it, you would 100% know what I'd be talking about. Okay. It's not like, yeah, it just 100% that you would know of this church and of this preacher, pastor. And my buddy that used to work for them and still does some work for them on the side, gay, and did live the lifestyle, but kept it secret because if the church or the ministry that he was a part of would have found out, he'd have been in trouble. And fascinatingly enough, I remember he told me this one time, the senior pastor, like the head guy, knew about my buddy and actually told him, hey, just keep that under wraps. Don't ever get caught. Don't let it ever get out. We don't want a big scandal. So almost, but he preached against homosexuality, said it was an abomination and yada, 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 yada. But yet told my friend who was gay, just keep that under wraps. And that, again, is also very prolific in the circles that I used to run in. It was all about, and I covered this on another video about the immorality of evangelical Christianity. It was really about the front that you put out. It was about the mask that you wore. It wasn't about truly, for everybody, now for some it was, but it wasn't truly about how you lived. It was, always have a heart, like look at David. David was a man after God's own heart, even though he did some crazy stuff, but his heart was right. That's kind of the view in the evangelical church is, just repent, keep your heart right. You can keep doing different things. Just make sure to repent and you'll be good. And definitely don't get caught. don't bring shame on yourself and on the church. But really what it was about is don't bring shame on God, on Jesus, on the ministry. Like, keep that stuff secret. And so, that when I say that kind of stuff, I can't even, I just can't even tell you the number of pastors that I have known throughout my life. Again, not the ones that we just know have done big scandals and all that. Again, for every person you see doing a scandal, there's thousands of other pastors doing a bunch of other shady stuff that they're just not being caught. And that again is so prolific. It just, I can't say it would be every pastor. There might be some just real sweet, pure people that are just there's non-religious people that are just good, pure people through and through. They just don't have any kind of an ornery bone in their body. I can tell you right now that's not true for so many of those in the evangelical Christian church. They're preaching against drinking, yet they drink on vacation. They're preaching against adultery, yet they're having adultery. They're having an affair. They're preaching against homosexuality, yet they have homosexual affairs. They're preaching against drugs, and yet they do drugs. They're preaching again. I know. I interviewed, and I'm going to have another interview with a pastor who was a pastor of a big vineyard church, a mega church that was a vineyard church, and he was hooked on drugs. Went to rehab, and had adulterous affairs and did all this stuff, and yet had a mega church that he was preaching at every Sunday and leading and doing all this stuff. And yet he had a whole secret life. And it doesn't make him a bad guy. In fact, he's a great guy. I'm going to have him on the podcast here, or on my show. He's a great guy. He's still friends of mine today. I just talked to him the other day. And, I'm going to have him come on here. And he would say, I don't think, he's not a Christian, definitely not a fundamental Christian type. Clearly, I don't even know. People have asked me, would I ever have on a Christian to debate? I just don't. To me, honestly, having a evangelical Christian on here to debate would literally be bringing a flat earther on here to debate. I'm not a big debater. I think I could perform well just because I can talk okay. So I think that would be okay. But I'm not well read enough, even though I read a lot, but I'm not that intelligent, like a Christopher Hitchens, to be able to debate someone. And so, if it was a super intelligent Christian that was debating me, they'd probably, because I would just be like, yeah, that's just not true. And I don't have anything else to say except that's a moronic belief. I just don't know how that would do in a debate. So the thought of bringing a Christian on here to debate, I wouldn't find that productive for me personally. That's just not my jam. But I would be cool with, and I'm planning on doing this, having people on who have deconstructed from the evangelical view and maybe now have a more open, universal type view. Even though I'm agnostic atheist, I do have friends in my life who deconstructed from the evangelical persuasion and have now landed on a more quasi-spiritual, Jesus is cool kind of a thing. And that's kind of where my buddy is. And he actually is very intelligent, super smart guy, very well read. Yeah, it's super fun to talk to. I am planning on having him on to talk about kind of his walking away and his secret life and where he landed and where he is now. And in fact, he pastors a church still. Not that church. That's a whole nother story, which we'll get into that when I have him on. So he still pastors, very part-time, and he basically just is using his scriptural knowledge and his teaching skills to do it, and it's going well. He's doing fantastic. Why am I telling you all this? I don't know exactly what the point of that was. Oh, the secret lives, and he talks about it, that he knows of pastors who also struggle with things on the side, and that's the thing. Pastors talk. Now, they're not going to talk to anybody outside their circle, but pastors have other pastor friends that they talk to. And again, I say this, and it's when I say everybody, maybe not every single pastor, most evangelical pastors have some kind of skeleton, some kind of secret double life. It's just a fact. It's just, I just, a pastor, I just heard another pastor, this is outside the one I told you about earlier in this little episode, another pastor that I knew, and his name was Robert Morris, I think. Is it Robert Morris? Maybe not Robert Morris. Crap, I can't think of his name. Anyway, a megachurch pastor from down in Texas. Norris? Robert Norris, maybe. Anyway, I actually went out to a seminar of this guy. I heard him preach, thousands of people, when he walked out in the parking lot, he had security guards with him, and like he was some big freaking deal, like he was the president of the United States. And I thought, I was a Christian at the time. And I remember even when I heard him speak, I'm just going to be honest with you. Of course, I was very judgmental as a Christian. I'm probably still a little judgmental. It's just maybe a little bit how I've been wired and trained to be from being a Christian for so long. So, I was a Christian when I went to that conference at his church. I remember when he was talking, I was like, that guy's full of BS, and he's got secret things going on the side, I bet. Like, there was just something about him that I was just like, and of course, hey, listen, I mean, I'm not acting all perfect here. I was a little bit of a mess too, as a pastor. Towards the end of my pastorate, I'm just going to tell you right now, full confession, I'm going to do a video on it. But I had little secret things going on too. So, I'm who am I to point fingers? One of the reasons I went to counseling for so long after when I was going through my deconstruction, I really wanted to work on things and really get to be the best version of myself that I possibly could be. Robert Norris, that is it. That is his name. Anyway, that Yahoo, I remember hearing him speak and just thinking, that guy's full of pride. What a haughty a-hole. Like, that guy's got stuff. He's hiding things. I can just tell. 10 years later now, or however many years from that seminar that I went to 12 years ago, it came out he had some shenanigans going on in behind the closet, secret sins. And I just shook my head. I thought, well, of course he did. He couldn't fit into that box. No one can fit into that box. All right, now I'm a little bit rambling, so I'll bring this down to a close here. Cuss and discuss that down below. Share how you didn't fit into the box, or if you feel like you didn't fit into the box, or maybe you're a Christian right now and you feel like you're not fitting into the box. That was one of the, and I think, did I ever tie up the loose ends on that? So I was talking about my homosexual friends who, they always felt like they weren't living their true authentic selves because they couldn't live the homosexual life before God and before all their Christian friends, because it was something that was considered an abomination, right? And like my homosexual friends, even though I'm heterosexual, I could relate to this because they would say it wasn't until I lived my authentic true self and lived the gay lifestyle, my friends said, that I felt totally free and totally whole and totally myself. And myself, even though I was heterosexual, there were so many things that I had to keep hidden and try to conform, and I just didn't conform. I didn't fit the little evangelical Christian box. It was such a struggle. So for me, when I left evangelical Christianity and began my deconstruction process, and now, atheist, I feel so free. I feel who I am and how I live are like together now. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like a whole person. I'm living authentically. There's nothing to hide. I don't hide anything. I'm open and honest. Now, of course, I have private things, right? There are things that I'm not going to talk about publicly because that's private, but there's nothing to hide. Yes, it's like when I was a Christian, if someone said, do you ever smoke the devil's lettuce? I'd be like, no, I never smoked the devil's lettuce. It's terrible. That's a sin. God didn't make that plant. The devil did. Right? That's what I'd have to say. That's what I'd have to say, right? Now, if you say, do you ever had the devil's lettuce? I'll be, yep, I do. And I like it. Okay. So like, I don't have to lie or hide anything anymore. I can just be authentic and be honest there. You know what I'm saying? And that's very freeing. So I got born again as an atheist. Atheism saved me because I was lost as an evangelical Christian. And I specifically say evangelical because I know a lot of good Christians that are, Christian, evangelical Christian, and Christian. There's a huge window there. Even evangelical, like some evangelicals are no cussing, no drinking, no smoking the devil's lettuce, no nothing. And then there's other evangelical Christians that are like, oh no, it's okay. You can smoke cigars, you can drink a little bit, you can and as long as you're having consensual premarital sex, as long as it's consensual, and as long as you love the person, and as long as then it's okay. They start again. That's why I think Christianity is going to look so different in 100, 500 years, 1,000 years. It will just, if we knew today what it would look like then, people today would be like, it's that we're going to lose the message of, we're going to lose the true message of Jesus. All right, guys, this is the bonus video because I'm taking the Sundays through the Advent season to do the Advent atheism, or Advent for Atheists. Is that what I called it? And so I want to make sure I'm keeping you guys entertained with thoughts and stories from my life as an evangelical pastor, things from my life now as I've deconstructed, and just kind of my views and perspectives and how I see it today. All right, peace, everybody.